Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about the men who are most likely to remain single based on research. I'm making this video not to pick on anyone or discourage anybody. I'm making this video because if you find yourself fitting some of these points and you want a relationship, you can adjust these things to increase your chances of finding partnership. That is the reason I'm making this video. I made a corresponding video for both genders. So obviously the ones who are watching this right now, you're watching the male version. The female version will either be posted after or before, but I am going to make that video. So I want to help, both individuals. I think man and woman fighting and like the gender wars and all that stuff, I don't agree with it. Like, I think we're different, but that's the point. Like, that's what makes the relationship stronger. You want people to complement your traits, not be exactly like you. And I think people just need to respect that, people are different, and that's how you make partnership. Like, I think we just all as people need to get better with compromise if we want to have healthy relationships. The first one, based on research, is that men who are more likely to remain single tend to have poor social skills or they are socially isolated. So the research used this word, and you can look at it, but it's very interesting because there's truth to it. There's data points. Very small social networks, or some of them are even non-existent. So men who just don't correspond or correlate with anybody. Difficulty initiating or maintaining relationships. And a lot of this can be linked to shyness, social anxiety, or limited opportunities in meeting partners for the fear of rejection and not wanting to initiate. I think this is interesting because I very much strongly agree with this one, but I think that's a good thing. Obviously, I'm not a man, so I can't speak to it, and you guys are welcome to fill me in on your perspective, but that means it has nothing to do with him being, it probably does, but not as much, him being unattractive or him being not as financially competent. This is one of the most biggest reasons, the fact that he's just not putting himself out there. I think that's great because it's very fixable. The next one is something that's a little bit more challenging to fix, but it can be fixed if needed, is men that have unstable socioeconomic status. I guess low would also count, but the research is a little bit more focused on the unstable. So unemployment or unstable work or in and out of jobs. Some of it actually correlates with lower educational qualifications, but not all of it. Basically, the point of this is not necessarily low income, but more like lack of stable income, which I think you guys knew. I don't think we need to stick too much on this, but I'll touch on one more point, sub-point of this point. Marriage in general, especially in certain areas, is highly the foundation of marriage is still built on men being providers, which is why this is occurring. The next one is men that have rigid standards or negative beliefs about relationships. Usually it's like unrealistic expectations of partners, but more often than not, part of that is also mixed with this kind of cynical or hostile view towards dating, and it's usually shaped from trauma or rejection, and this can almost lead to opting out of dating entirely. However, the man in of itself he's not opting out because of a mentally sound reason. Often he's opting out because he's felt rejected. And this is still okay. I shouldn't have said mentally sound, but I meant that he's doing it out of direct emotion instead of both emotion and logic. The next one is that actually there's research that men living in areas with, I guess, unfavorable gender ratios to which there are more men than they are ladies. There are regions that have significantly more men than women, where that makes it hard to get into a relationship with a lady because there's not many of them. Now, the next point I think is pretty interesting because it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's going to be triggering. So if anyone is triggered by, if you're easily triggered, I just say click off. Older men who have never been partnered have one of the lowest chances of having a relationship. So if a man remains single in his 40s and 50s, based on the research, the likelihood of him being single for the rest of his life greatly increases. And there's a couple reasons to this. He's in a pool where a lot of people are already married. Even if he tries to date somebody in her 20s and she's not married, whatever that situation is, right? There's a lot of differences between his lifestyle and his understanding of life and hers, and that in of itself can create issues. I have nothing against like an age gap relationship. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it can be really challenging for men in this situation. And I made a video on this before, that a lot of men believe that chasing career is beneficial to relationships. I think it is, but there's one drawback. If you're chasing your career well into your 40s and you've never had a relationship because you've been so busy on your career, sometimes you don't pick up the social skills needed for a relationship. And that's another reason why a lot of men in his 40s or 50s, particularly late 40s, if they have been single for their whole life, it's really hard for them to get into a relationship. It's not impossible, but this is one of the highest chances on this list, to be honest. And so if you are a man who really wants a relationship, I get the most greatest opportunities to try and find yourself out there, getting out there, socializing and talking to whoever you can, but it's not guaranteed, and life is not guaranteed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And the next one, and it is the last one, but I think it's very important. Men who have past trauma and negative relationship experiences tend to remain single for a couple reasons. And we're going to expand upon it because I think it's important. It doesn't even have to be you. It could be indirectly. If your parents got divorced, maybe you got divorced, maybe you were betrayed or abused as a child, long-term rejection, bullied in school. The reason why these shape your experiences with relationships is because we all bring baggage to our relationships, of course, but you bring a substantial amount, whereas maybe the other person doesn't have as much in comparison, if we could even measure it. And sometimes that in of itself is not very compatible. And so she might not know how to communicate with you because there's a lot of that trauma. You might be more negative towards her. You might have more negative views of her, and she sees you in a more positive light, but you don't believe her. You might have negative views or hostile towards certain things that she's not fully understanding at this time. And it's not that what you're feeling is invalid. It is valid, but it's from the lens of trauma. And so it's really hard to experience love without love again without processing some of these things. However, I will say this one is pretty solvable. I'm a therapist, so I'm going to say therapy is a great one. Processing it, journaling it, talking out with some of your buddies, whatever it may be. Engaging or making friends with people who have healthy marriages can really help this one too, actually. I don't think a lot of people talk about that much, but I like that intervention. Making friends with married people or people in healthy relationships can really help. And this, a lot of times some men who feel this way, they actually disengage from relationships entirely as a form of self-protection, not because he wants to, but because he almost feels like he has no choice. But again, if you want to remain single, that's fine. I'm not judging people who are single. I just make videos like this to help people. Research is in the description box. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.